Hi, I'm Laura, your connection coach. Have you ever felt lonely? In a world that feels increasingly divided, it is more important than ever to find ways to connect with others. Loneliness is a common experience, but it doesn't have to be a permanent one. On the Bliss Republic podcast, we explore all the ways we connect with each other and discuss the benefit of having strong relationships. We believe that the key to overcoming loneliness is connection. My guests come from all walks of life and will hear about their unique experience with connection. Whether you're looking to deepen your existing relationships, build new ones, or simply feel more connected to the world around you, the Bliss Republic podcast is for you. Today we have Chris O'Brien with us. Hi, Chris, and welcome to the Bliss Republic podcast. You are in Orange County in California, and you work as an entrepreneur in 3 businesses. You work with people all over the world, currently about 300 people that are working with you in the same business in over 15 countries. You grew up as an athlete playing professional basketball in Mexico, where you also have family connections. Your home is in Orange County in LA, as well as pretty much all over the world. You currently offer a master course in cryptocurrency to help people with their finance, but you also care about the consumption of water and the overall mission to help people wake up and come out better. Welcome to Bliss Republic podcast.
Thank you. What a pleasure. Thanks for having me on and asking me. And I'm honored to be a guest and sharing the good word for the family listening right now and people in Australia as well and around the world, whoever's tuning in. So it's a great honor. I appreciate you inviting me and having the space for this.
You are an entrepreneur, business and health coach, and crypto specialist. What's your favorite area?
And that's a good question because there's so many different facets I feel we all go through in life. I think sometimes we have like seasons, we have phases. I'm someone that is not really like to be tied down to one thing. I'm very multifaceted, sometimes all over the place at times, and that could be a good thing and it could be a bad thing depending on the situation. Right now, given where the world is, and I would say where the world's going and what I've learned just in the last 3 to 4 years since everything that happened in 2020 globally, is my fascination with the financial shift that is currently happening right behind our eyes, like literally almost right in front of us. We just can't actually see it. So my high interest right now is into digital assets. It's into this digital technology, decentralization concept of power returning back to the people. And to supplement that too, what good is it to have financial wealth if you're not healthy and you don't have the ability, your consciousness, your spiritual connection with God and a greater power in the universe, just based on where the world's going and where the world is shifting, is into these digital asset spaces, which I know many people are getting curious about. They're opening their mind up. They're questioning kind of how we've been doing things for so many years. And that's really a good sign. I always say one of the most expensive things you can own is a closed mind. It's fascinating because it's been so slow and outdated that we work so hard right here in the US. We work so hard for a piece of paper, yet we don't know how it works. We don't know where this came from. We don't know how it's process. We don't know how it's printed. We don't know what it really does, how it gets inflated. And so it's such a paradox to think that you, me, people listening to this, we work so hard to make money because what is it? Australian dollars, right? We work so hard to make Australian dollars, yet what is it doing for us? Like how can I have money work for me? And that's where things start to change. So your mindset will shift. Your financial literacy will continue to grow. You're like an early adopter. So yes, it's kind of scary when you're first into something that is so new and most people don't know what it is. So there's a lot of fear behind it. And at the same time, that's great potential. You have a great opportunity for something called a return on that investment, which is where you put your money somewhere. It'll grow over time and it compounds and starts making more money than you used to make at your current job. So there's great opportunities everywhere. The benefits are endless as long as first you're just in a space where your mind is open up enough so you can hear it.
So in saying that, what are the most common myths you would say about cryptocurrency and how are you working to dispel them?
Yeah, great. A big one technically is, it's not going to be around much, right? Oh, it's just a fad. That was one of the things. Oh, it's just going to come and go, just like this or just like that. Well, if anything, it's far from going anywhere. We've been using cryptocurrency. You're like, well, what do you mean? I'm sure you have a debit card, right? Or a credit card. That's cryptocurrency. 80%, if not 90% or more of the currency around the world, whether it's the pound, the yen, the euro, the peso, the yuan, the Vietnamese, not 80 to 90% of this is all digital. We've been using digital currency for a long, long, long time. And that's why like the word cryptocurrency can be a little triggering because people have a negative association. Oh, the banks are going to control us now. We're going all digital. We have no more cash. So they're going to control us and they're going to censor us and social credit us, the CBDCs. And there's a lot of fear. There's uncertainty. There's worry. There's doubt. And it's hard to think clearly when we're feeling that way. So a lot of the myths really that you look to dispel is when you start learning like the basic problems this technology is solving, you're going to start realizing like why hasn't the world adopted this sooner? Because it's going to take away a lot of issues of theft, laundering, trafficking, all of these things that we have been pretty much happening in front of us with our current financial system. So that's a really big one to comprehend, is just make sure someone else's story isn't yours. The other myth was, well, we already have been, or we're going into cryptocurrency where really we've been using it for a long, long time. And I would say another big one is, control that we feel like governments will have on us, when really, like I mentioned, if you start learning the basic technology, when you start researching a little bit, when you start connecting some dots and learn about decentralization, the whole point of it is to take power away from the banks. The whole point of it is to change the way banking is done, take power away from the governments that have actually controlled more of our currency by printing, excessive money printing, inflating and taxing us, than actually trying to innovate and create better solutions that works better for me and you. So those are a couple myths that you can dispel right off the bat.
I was wondering, how can I work a little bit with my mindset? I think everyone is very attached to their money because they have worked for it so hard. How can I make that shift to see the positive?
Yeah, good question. Well, you kind of answered it in a way too. It's hard to make any kind of change or any kind of decision, logical or emotional, in that type of fear. So if we're only looking at what is not working, like for example, here's a funny analogy, right? We have a car, you have your van, I have my truck, we have a sedan, we have a Corvette, we have whatever car we drive. Yet, do you really know how it works? No, of course not. Why do we get in a car when we don't know how it works? We don't know how it starts. We don't know how the wheels turn, how the motor works. We probably can't fix it. We don't know how to change our own oil. We don't know how to do all these things, yet we trust it getting us from point A to B. Why is that? Well, a couple of reasons. Because it's been around longer than we even have been alive, like the automobile industry. We've had cars before I was born, before you were born. We've had cars. The next thing is there are millions of people that are driving cars as well. So it's like this herd mentality. We don't feel like I'm the only one driving a car. So those two big factors, that it's been around that long and that many people are using it, that makes us feel comfortable to walk outside, get in our car, turn on the ignition, press the gas and go. You're not thinking about, well, what if the tires don't turn? Well, what if the gas starts? What if the gas doesn't get to the engine to turn my tires? We don't think about that. Why? Because we have no fear. Because everyone else is doing it, and we've been doing it for so long. So now, for anything that we're moving into, not many people are using it. And it hasn't been technically in our awareness that long, so it's very easy to be scared to get in that car and drive it. It's very easy to get in that scared car and drive it. So think of it that way, because if you start learning how a car works, if you start learning how, quantum mechanics work, or you start learning how money works, or you start learning how, right, the waves crash in Australia, you start learning about the riptides, you have no fear of a riptide. You have no fear of a wave. If anything, you're like, let's wake up earlier to get to the waves. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, let's get in earlier, because when you start learning how the waves crash, how the tides move, where the moon is, when the shore breaks, where's the stand, there is no fear of getting on your surfboard. That's the same mentality I'm looking to help people get when it comes to a new type of money, a new type of financial system. Because once you start feeling comfortable, it's like, why have I waited so long? What have I been so afraid of? And then you'll start hearing old conversations of people that are still scared to go out into the ocean. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's why they're so afraid. No wonder.
Yeah.
And now you can see almost like outside looking in. So I like using those examples as analogies of just everyone using it. It's been used for a long time and we trust it. Crypto, not many people using it. We haven't been using it for a while, especially globally adoption. So it's hard to trust it. And that's why it can be a little scary. So education is everything. Education and knowledge will take you so far in life, especially if you apply it.
And in saying that, it kind of makes me think about what you can do to change your mindset in the here and the now. But then also you kind of have to have a vision for yourself
Sure.
going forward. So what would you say, how important is it for you to be connected to your future?
Yeah, absolutely. Golly. So a lot of decisions we make, are predicating our future of where we're going. And some people have there's different ways to look at this, right? Some people don't even know what they're doing tomorrow. And you ask them, what are your plans for 2024? And they'll roll their eyes like, I don't even know what's for dinner tonight. And that's okay,
Yeah.
right? We all have our different ways of creating our reality. Some people know what they're eating for dinner, and they also know, next year I'm going here, I'm doing this, I see it, I feel it, I resonate with it, I'm putting it out there, and it makes sense. So when it comes to like the future, there's different avenues that you can take. I personally, I use the word zoom out and see, who am I, where's the world, where's society, what's trending that way, what's moving that way in the next 5 to 10 years. And there was a famous hockey player, Wayne Gretzky, and it was one of my favorite quotes that I resonate with, is he says, don't go where the hockey puck is, go where it's going. That's why he was so good on the ice. He wouldn't go where the guys were. He would see, like if a guy had the puck here and he was going to hit it down the side of the rink, he would go over to that side before he hit it. That's how he was so good, because he was 10 steps ahead of people. So when it comes to your future, yes, stay present. It's the greatest gift there is. Present moment, absolutely. And at the same time, make sure that your future is not just kind of a vision board, or it's not just like a vision in your mind. You create a plan. Like you create a little strategy for yourself. Like, what do you want your money to look like here, and how are you going to do that? It's like where you are now, where you're going. And the golden question is, how do you get there? And start seeing that every day. Start asking God for that direction every day. Start repeating that every day, and it'll start to manifest. And now you'll start getting these answers that you've been trying to look for and trying to figure out yourself. Yet the world and life and God will just show it to you. And that's pretty incredible, because so many people live in the past, definitely living in the past.
They do. And one thing that I've been wanting to ask you is, do you work with mantras?
I have in the past. That really got me into like affirmations. This was all like just so foreign to me many years ago after I had my spiritual awakening in end of 2017. A lot of things has changed since. With mantras, yes, then affirmations, yes. And it's gotten to a point where I feel like I've repeated things so much, like I am it. Like without having to say, I am this. I already know that, so I don't even need to say it anymore. And I feel it, and every part of my being resonates with it. And I have my like little go-to mantra that I always like to say. I probably say it close to 10 to 20 times a day over the last 2 years.
Wow.
And that's all I say. It's just like a little declaration for myself, like a paragraph that I say.
Would you share it with us?
We can say it again here. So I'm a billionaire, and everything I touch turns to gold. I am at the right place at the right time with the right opportunity. I am a genius, and I share my wisdom. When in doubt, I help people zoom out and then zoom in and control what they can to help people come out better. That's like a brief synopsis of it, right? You're hitting the financial aspect, the mental aspect, the physiological aspect, the intellectual aspect, the emotional aspect. And I just repeat that over and over and over. So to answer your question, yes, I'm a big fan of language, mantras, affirmations, and especially repeating them where you're feeling it. And like a little tip I learned also too was, you say, I am abundant, I am wealthy. And yet in your bank account, there's like $1,000. So like your ego goes, no, you're not. Right? It's like that battle. So a little tip for you is, I am wealthy, comma, and my name is Chris. Because the moment you actually say a truth with the thing, because Because here's the people can have $200 in their bank account and they're saying, I am wealthy, I am wealthy, I am wealthy, I am abundant, I'm attracting millions, I'm attracting. Your ego is going to go, you have $200 in the bank, you have $200 in the bank, you have $200 in the bank. So in order to cancel that out, what we can do is add another factual statement connected to that affirmation, which is, my name is Chris. So I am wealthy and abundant and my name is Chris. The ego can't fight it because it can't argue that the fact of the matter is your name is Chris. You still got that first sentence out though.
That's such a good hack.
Yep. Say it. And my name is Lara.
I am abundant. My name is Lara.
There you go. And now all of a sudden your ego can't fight it. Your ego can't say, no, you're not, because your ego can't say, no, you're not Lara. You are Lara. You were just able to get the abundant line in there too. So you learned how to hack your own program. You hacked your own supercomputer, which is you in your brain. Yeah.
So tell us about the supercomputer. I picked up somewhere that you are very particular about the words you surround yourself with. And one, in fact, of my favorite quotes is, words create the house we live in.
Beautiful.
So tell us about how you are surrounding yourself and what's the house you're creating with words.
Great question. First of all, too, this is probably my favorite book of all time. All time.
Who's it by?
Robert Tennyson Stevens. Conscious Language. Right here. I'm going to hold it up for a second. I've read this book almost 20 times. This is my number one book of all time in my life. It is like my own Bible. So basically what this book really breaks down is how everything in this world, whether it's thoughts or things that you speak, because think about it, there's 8 billion people, hundreds of different languages. Every single day, the most exchanged type of energy are the words that is spoken through the human body. The breath, the spirit that comes from the lungs, that travels over the vocal cords, that it gets shaped up by our tongue and then comes out and speaks. And you can use it to tear people down or build people up. You can ruin nations or you can create empires simply by the words you say. And I always say that most people's health conditions, mental health, physical health, emotional, spiritual health, before trying to fix even their food, even their water, their meditation, their mindset, trying to do like detoxes and all that, I literally will ask people, what are the most common words you speak every single day?
Wow.
That's it. And they're like, because we don't actually audit and take into consideration the 10,000. If you did not know this, on average, females speak anywhere from 10 to 20,000 words a day.
Ooh.
We don't drink that much water. We don't eat that much food. We don't work out that long. And we don't even take that many breaths. Maybe right up there, right? The breath is so important. Breath work. How are your words working? What's your word work? What's your word bank? And that's another word is like your word bank. Are you going to bed broke or are you going to bed abundant? And it's not the affirmation. It's the words you are speaking every single day. When you use the words like try, kinda, but, maybe, can't, don't, wouldn't, shouldn't, I don't know, hopefully, let's see, whatever. These words that we say so much, mostly in our head, right? 90% of them in our head. Well, they keep compounding in money. They keep adding another dollar, another dollar, another dollar. For some of us, we're losing money by the day. So your current situation, if I had to say something, which really throws a lot of people off, it's an accumulation of the words you have thought and the words you have spoken. Not your food, not your exercise, not where you live, not your job, not your money, not the crypto, nothing. Not the mantras or the affirmation. It's the words in certain orders that create certain sentences that create certain stories. Because I can say a word right now. I can say dollars. I can say money. And 100 people will give me 100 answers. They're like, oh, that's evil. Oh, there's too much. Oh, that's inflated. Oh, I love it. Oh, gifts. Oh, rent. Oh, taxes. Oh, liability. Oh, credit card. Do you see how one word creates 20 stories for people? Your reality is pretty much manifesting, right? The law of attraction, we hear about these terms, the laws of the universe. Well, yeah, there's set laws governed by the word. And that's why in the beginning was the word. And that's the biblical prophecy of everything. So your words matter. Everything you think about and speak about compounds and invests over time. Trillions of words are exchanged every single day around the world. And that's why the world we live in today is based on the words people are speaking every single day in reality.
That is so interesting.
Mhm.
In fact, I had a good conversation with my dad the other day on how words are created and the syllables in every sentence. And we analyze the word to understand.
Yeah.
And if someone asks you, especially in our schooling system nowadays, do you understand?
Yes.
Which actually means I am under you.
There you go.
And that is so powerful in a way. And since that, I try not to say it. I try to say things like I comprehend, which is a forward frequency. But it's so fascinating how words impact us and even throughout the day carry forward that energy that we create throughout the day.
Yeah.
Especially the first thoughts in the morning
Yes.
that we create, which makes me come to the question, do you have a morning ritual?
Yes and no. And before I answer that, are you open to some feedback on some sentences you just said? So you said, and here for those listening, here's one of my biggest tips I can give you to come out better in your life is there's one word that is literally negating a lot of the positive things from happening in your life because of one word we use that negates everything we just said and now emphasizes the second part that we really didn't mean. And the word is but.
Wow.
So when you said something about frequencies and your father like moving forward frequencies, but you paused yourself, you call but, you just basically like if you put your finger on the keyboard and hit backspace, 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 you just
Yeah.
deleted that whole sentence subconsciously. This food is so good, Laura, but it can use some seasoning. And you can feel it.
We
It's like, well, hold on. They really didn't mean the food was good. They were just trying to soften you up to tell you that it was bad because it needs more seasoning. So the word but literally cancel clears everything we just said. So the best switch you can make is just switch it to and. Just switch it to and. This food was
Yeah.
amazing and it could use some more seasoning. It's a totally different shift instead of this food is incredible, but, and you could feel it, but it needed to be spicier. And now
Terrible.
you go, I knew I should have done better instead of I know I'll make it better next time. There it is. These little subtle moments
Mhm.
that people are saying that are literally causing the chaos or the pain or the anxiety or the depression to keep circling over and over. If they can start capturing and catching these little words instead of now they can say the food is incredible and it could also be really good if it's spicy too. Now you're like, "Oh yeah, thanks. I
Yeah.
agree." And you just
Yeah.
instead of the food is incredible, but Laura, I mean, it's not as spicy.
It's so
I
fascinating
know.
because when you just pointed it out, my stomach literally just turned because I was like, everybody in my life does that. Everyone I know. It's always this and this, but.
Yep, exactly.
And
I know.
it's unbelievable.
So my advice to you too is here's what you can do. When I hear that, one of the best things you can say is cancel clear. So cancel
Huh.
clear and cancel
Yeah.
clear. I'm going to try to make the podcast today. Cancel clear. I will be on time. Or that people will say, I don't want to be late. They say what they don't want to happen. And so that happens. So when you say, I don't
Yeah.
want to be late, the subconscious mind hears, I do want to be late. So what happens? Someone cuts you off, you get a little fender bender, now you're late.
Yeah.
Instead of what you don't want to happen, hey, I'm going to be on time. I don't want to be late. I hope I'm not late. I know I'm on time. You have two sentences. Which one are you going to choose? And that's where life
Yeah.
in the moment is truly created and truly reality is expressed. And that's like, I could teach on that for like hours and hours and hours because it works. I see it in my life happen. I have limited stress. I have very few problems I have to deal with, negativity, criticism. I don't have many bad days. And now kind of going into that other question you asked about my rising routine, and just be aware of mourning, right? Good morning. We don't need to mourn. We mourn at a funeral. We rise every day. We don't mourn every day. So I like to say
Yeah.
grand rising or rise and shine better. So my rising routine, it used to be very, I would say complex, a lot of different things. I wake up, some days I'll go brush my teeth first, some days I'll go to the bathroom first. You can get very, very detailed. What I started to notice for me that worked personally over the years was waking up, getting my water. I always drink my Kangen water first thing in the morning. And after that, first thing in the rising, I choose to be happy. And then I'll start reading. And I've read close to over 100 books in the last 2.5 years. And I was never a reader in my life. And when I
Wow.
started to read, I started to have this inclination, kind of what you were saying, this nudge intuitively to share what I'm reading. And that's how my brand started to grow. That's how I started to come out better, because I was unlearning things in my life and relearning new principles. Yet most people, what they'll do, they'll learn something and then they hold on to it. They're really bad at playing hot potato. I would not want to play hot potato, or actually I would want to play with them because they would lose, because they would hold on to that information. So my advice to people too is, one of the best things you can do is when you learn something new, go tell a few people about it. Pages and pages of notes from all these calls they've been on, and they don't share it. So I was reading a lot and then sharing it on my social media platforms. And then usually I would go for a workout. That's kind of how I rise my day. I don't eat breakfast. I eat maybe 1 or 2 meals a day towards the end of the day or midday. I go work out, and then I get right into my business, right into my work. And now after doing that for years, I can roll out of bed at like 5 a.m. and go right to posting and right to creating. It's just a channel. I don't need a foundation. I don't need mantras anymore, affirmations. I just roll out, crank out, and a lot of my downloads are coming in. My drops are coming in, and I'm getting out to people. It's just channeling and coming through me, just like it does through you. And that's how we truly help each other as well. Those are some basic tweaks. It's hydration, usually reading, and then movement, some type of workout. Yeah, very simple rising.
I like that, on the rising routine that you have and the state you're in. Would you say that's flow state for you? And how do you work with people to get into a flow state?
Yeah, very good question. So even before you rise, the efficiency of rising and going into a flow state or a creative space, there's other variables that happen. You have to take in consideration certain chemicals in your brain, right? We have dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, melatonin, oxytocin. These different components are a part of it. So if you're not sleeping properly, and then that goes even farther back, you're on Wi-Fi, you got no airplane mode, you're on Bluetooth, blue light screens, you're scrolling, you're eating late, you're drinking, you're whatever it is. That's usually where your rising starts, is before you even go to bed. And a lot of people skip that notion, right? So they're sleeping poorly, or their brain is turned on into beta brain waves, not delta, which is getting into that deeper REM sleep. And then if we start rising, we come into a theta state. So that's where we're kind of in the void. And then they make cartoons out of it. We're like this, and then we got to reach for coffee. But really, that's one of the healthiest states you can be in. That's the time when you're in between brain waves to actually receive insights from all the data around you, all the data coming through you, and all the data that has been within you. So a lot of people skip this step. And that's why I like to read, because it kind of starts segueing me from delta to theta and then into alpha, not beta. Beta is like more the thinking mind, the fight or flight. This is where we start overanalyzing. And some people may disagree with me. In that beta wave, we start creating what? Thoughts, which goes back to what? Words. And those words, most of them are out of the moment, unconscious, and negative. So we start creating shame. And the word shame becomes a story. And we subscribe to the story. And this whole time, we're sitting in our chair. It's beautiful outside. The sun is shining. Your family's around you. But your mind, cancel clear, and see how I did that? And your mind is in some other place, in some other frequency, that is playing out these stories that you keep saying is shaming you, blaming you, grieving, resenting you, right? So the rising starts before you go to bed. Get into that delta state, wake up in that theta state. Maybe you have downloads coming in. This is where people do their gratitude journal. Make it your creative journal. Have gratitude all the time, not just an hour of your day. Like everything, just thank you. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for this space. Thanks for this moment. Gratitude all the time, not just for 10 minutes when you wake up at a certain time. And so when you wake up into that theta and you get into the alpha, now it's a little bit more easy to get into that flow state, which you're not really thinking. You're just kind of letting God and universe and source just kind of guide you of what you should say. Your newsletter, your emails. Like, I'm reaching out to people early. Even before the sun comes up, I'm sending messages out. They're like, "You're up that early?" I'm like, yeah. I mean, I've never had an alarm clock. I've never had an alarm. I wake up at about 5:30, 5:45 every rising. It's just clockwork, and I can roll right out of bed and get right to it. Because there's so many parts of taking your power back and truly finding that balance, that rhythm in your life, which then gets us into that flow state out of the left hemisphere, more into the right hemisphere, where now we're creating instead of just consuming, or we're responding instead of just reacting. And these little shifts can really make a big impact. And when you rise, two other things that are very helpful, and this varies for depending where you live, is getting outside, putting your feet immediately on the earth, however, whatever you got to do, grass, wood, sand, no asphalt, right? No concrete, or no asphalt. Concrete even works. These groundings, and also getting some type of sunlight. Now, if you wake up before the sun, you can get a red light. I use a red light. Those are also two big things I like to do: rise with the sun or get the red light, plus touch my feet on Mother Earth to get the electrons, discharge the positive charge, the protons that cause inflammation, pain. And that's another good boost to help you in your rising routine for sure.
You mentioned that when we go through these different stages of rising and waking up our brain and our systems in the morning, we go through the theta frequency. That's the place where we get into the downloads and we are receiving, which, by the way, this is another quote that came to me, I think 2 years ago, with this grand awakening everywhere. The quote says, "When we pray, this is how we communicate with God. But when we meditate, it's how God communicates to us." And I think it's so beautiful because it opens this segue of how to create that exchange. I would like to talk a bit about channeling, because I actually channeled something for you the other day. I found it incredibly chaotic. When I was sitting down after our first initial conversation, that's when I usually frame my questions. I think it's me being out of the right frequency this week, and I couldn't quite get through to you with my frequency. So I was like, I just don't know what is going on here. So I was sitting in meditation, and there's something that came through, and I would like, if you're open to it, to read it to you. I would just like to see what that means. I would like your take on it afterwards.
Absolutely, 100%. I'd love to hear it.
So, some people are born with a different level of consciousness. Every family has one person, often a child, waking up and rising their vibrational frequency and thus their level of consciousness. They are sensitive beings, either growing up believing they were born into the wrong family, or growing up and suffering because of the life choices placed upon them. They think with their hearts and have difficulty with the self-destructive reasoning of their family members. Their ability to lateral thinking makes them connect the dots and thus see the big picture. They are hurting because the people they love can't be saved. But that's not their job. They are here to free others by first freeing themselves. This journey will be initiated through deep grief and turmoil. Because of who they are the ones with the capability to come out better, to change and become a child again, to find innocence in the world full of darkness. They are the ones to rise from the ashes and spread their wings. Because of their self-mastery and leadership, others will follow and grow. And that is what will ultimately save the ones they love.
That might be the most spot on description of me I've ever heard, not from me. And I've heard a lot of things. I want you to send that to me, and I want to print that and frame that. It is the most, from the growing up, the one waking up, such a big heart, yet don't know how to explain it. I've always wanted to be a billionaire so I can give it all away. That's why I wanted to be in the NBA. And then going through an awakening, my brand being a phoenix, coming out better, and one of the toughest emotions I've had to deal with being grief, because I lost my father 3 years ago, right in front of me. And the hardest thing to accept was I couldn't save him. And you didn't know this. And I could literally break down this whole message and talk about it for an hour, what you just said to me. And I don't even have words to respond to this. And old me would have been a little freaked out. Now me, it makes total sense.
What does that mean?
I don't know how you would get this. I don't know how you would put those words together without knowing me for years. So today, though, I get it, because all of this information that you can tap into, any of us can, is instant. Like, you're in Australia, you're really not that far though. There is that space time kind of construct. We're literally live right now as if I'm right next to you. Like I said, I've never heard anyone like you. I feel like you just created my whole mission statement, and you don't really know who I am fully and what I've gone through. Another reason I'm not so surprised as well is because you said something very powerful before you shared that. And thank you, by the way. That was incredible. I'm going to print this and frame this and have this. I'm very big on biofeedback. Like, I enjoy hearing when people have things to tell me, good or bad. It gives me clarity instead of just me telling it. Before you said all that, Laura, you said something very important. People pray to get to God, and then we meditate to hear from God. And you just expressed the most simple, most profound program of any supercomputer, quantum computer, AI, which is question and answer. And to pray, really, in etymology, when you break it down, means to ask a question. What happens is people pray and we beg for help. That's not a question, right? God, if you do this, I'll go to church. I promise. That's not a question. That's a demand. And we wonder why these things don't happen. And I used to pray like that. I used to just demand things and command things, and I wouldn't get my answer. And so when you pray in a different light, where you're asking the question, and then the second part, I love what you said, is when you meditate, you get the answer, because you're no longer left brain is thinking about it, searching for it, finding it, figuring it out, doing it, because we're so tiny. Our little left brains are. Our right brain, though, is receiving all the data. That's what Wi-Fi and Bluetooth mirrors the right and left brain hemisphere. The left brain asks the right brain a question. The right brain gives the left brain an answer. And that left brain is me and you. We call it our ego. And that's the work on Patty Doon, who I follow on Instagram, Portal to God Dimensions. And basically what you just explained was, when you pray, you ask the question. When you meditate, when you're still and present and quiet, you will get the answer. And you did that with me. And so you asked God the question about me, and God gave you the answer about me, because my right brain, your right brain, every person listening to this, their right hemisphere, we have two brains, not one. That's a big misconception. We have a right brain and a left brain, and it's held together by a corpus callosum. We have two brains, not one. You are actually able to tap into the field through the right brain. So when you say channeling, when people go on, they go astral projection, they go in ayahuasca, they go in these plant ceremonies, they have these external out-of-body experiences, one can say, nor argue, nor disagree, that all we did was we went to another hemisphere, and that right hemisphere is what took us to those places. So you tapped in there, and you got the information, which some call the Akashic Records, Gaia's Library, all these different words, these labels that our left brain gives it to tap into something that has no word, has no name. And the fact that you were able to take that information, put it into a few sentences about someone you have no clue that's across the world, that is 99.9% more accurate than anyone has ever told me, is a testament to your connection to Source, and your connection to God, and your connection to Creator, and whatever your path is. So I just wanted to share that back to you. Yeah, I'm going to remember this, of what you said to me, and I'm already excited to reread it. So thank you. That was incredible. And I'm glad that you took a moment on this podcast and just letting others in too, on sharing that with me, because it shows what's possible. Yeah, I'm words.
You are
Very,
so
very
welcome.
I know this to be true. I know this to be true. So thank you for that. Very good.
Makes me curious. You mentioned just something that I want to hold a bit space for. So you mentioned that big awakening, and with your father passing and the grief you went through. Was that about the time that you woke up?
I had an out-of-body experience in 2017, in December 2017. And mind you, I the only thing I knew anything about waking up was I started just to see 11:11 before this all happened. That's the only thing. Only thing. Wasn't meditating, wasn't spiritual, had no clue what chakras were, had no clue what herbs were, I had no clue what plant medicine, nothing, anything.
Can I let you in on a secret? I have been seeing 11:11 since the 11th of the 11th in 2011.
Oh, gosh, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So there you go.
You can ask all of my friends. they're like, we have been freaked out about this for years because every
Mhm.
time it's 11:11, Lara mentions it, like, and it started with 02:02. It
Yeah.
started with all these sort of alignments
And
with
here I
numbers.
was. I kept seeing 1111. Didn't know what that meant. I just know it was kind of like a fortune cookie feeling experience. Had an out of body experience. Came back into my body. I was 3 hours. This was after a night of partying in Newport Beach, California, as a 27-year-old or
Wow.
whatever age. I don't 28, 27. Just partying. No, whatever.
Yeah.
Woke up and I was on
Yeah.
the ceiling looking at my body paralysis, no clue what was happening. Come back into my body. A voice starts to talk. Not a man, not a woman. It's just like I was reading a teleprompter, like maybe my higher self, maybe God's voice. I don't know. And what happened was I open up my phone and then all of a sudden I see this Instagram page about certain people in government. And then I start seeing something about big pharma and what is acid and who is Dr. Sebi. And I'm like, where did all this come from? Yet something in me said, keep going. 3 months later, I get the phone call. My dad has cancer. So I was like woken up by
Mm.
God months before he got cancer, his diagnosis. At the time, we had brought him Kangen water. He was drinking Kangen water every day for the first time, 9.5, a gallon a day. And he was doing like an intro round of chemo just to see how his body would react. He had acute myeloid leukemia. And after literally a few months, they did a test, full remission. And they did not know what to say.
Wow.
Here's what happened though. Pharmaceuticals, hey, let's make sure it doesn't come back. Chemotherapy, all those things. Fast forward now, I am waking up literally, not in nature, not at a spiritual retreat, not with community, in a hospital, watching my father go through chemotherapy, do have a bone marrow transplant, gets graft versus host disease, take 13,000 medications. Mind you not, I am unwiring every part of me inside, reading, listening, while watching my father be dosed with chemotherapy. So I had like heaven evolving and hell happening at the same time for close to almost 2 years. I don't know how I survived. I don't know how I did it. I was literally in the depths of like the darkest places with big pharma and the hospital and the system and everything they were pushing on him. And so after that, he had gotten so weak. He had started losing too much weight. He had taken 13,000 pills, 4 rounds of chemo, 10 blood transfusions. The doctors told him he can't go to the beach because he would get sick. He can't go outside. COVID happens. He's isolated. He can't coach basketball anymore. And I'm waking up. Imagine you raising your consciousness while the person you love most is literally depleting. Like, imagine that polarity. And that taught me more in those years about life than anything else I've ever experienced, more than any books, more than anything. So you watch your best friend, your father, your coach, your whole life just slowly die. And as you rise and learn how he's dying, what's happening, now that's why I share what I share. That's why I'm Come Out Better. That's what Come Out Better is how to go from the lowest of lows in your life, feeling like death is the only way out, to rising like a phoenix and having a chance and making sure people don't have to go through that again. That was an intense experience. He passed away in 2020 in October, on October 9th. He had complications with something in his stomach, sepsis, and it was so out of my control. And like, that's what you were saying. It's so hard for you because you can't save everyone. And when I heard that, I was like, how do you know I went through that? You know what I mean? How do you know that I died over and over in that hospital room when you have all these things working against you and you have all this evil and all these, nothing offensive to doctors. God bless them if they're doing good things, but most of them were just there as a product pusher, as a pill pusher. It was so dark and so corrupt and so evil. The language they would tell to him, the fear they would pump in him, that if he didn't do this, he would die. If he didn't do this, he would get sick. And I'm just sitting there reading this book, and then I'm hearing doctors say the opposite of that. And I'm like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. That was me battling heaven and hell. That was just a constant battle. So yeah. And through all that, when someone passes, grief that comes up. And that was one of the densest emotions I've ever felt, because you can have a great day and have one thought, and your day is completely just deflated. And you're just sitting. And there was days I would cry for 3 hours and I wouldn't even know what to do. And I would just lay, and I would just numb myself, and I would just lay. And the only way that I started to come out of that stronger was to start serving people, because my father, he would always say the number one lesson he can give me is leaders serve. Like, leaders put others before them. And he did that so much, it could have not been the best thing towards us. He had to start doing things for himself for the first time. So I learned that to get me out of this, I've got to do everything and anything I can to make sure no one else goes through this. I got to do everything and everything I can to make sure people learn from what I just learned. Because they say, right, the hero and the villain, same backstory. They have something traumatic happen to them. They lose a loved one. They get some type of pain. They get hurt. The villain
Yeah.
says this, because I went through that, I want everyone to go through that. The hero says this, because I
Mm.
went through that, I don't want anyone to go through that. And that's the choice that I made, because I
Yeah.
could have went down a dark path. I could have had revenge on my mind. I could have done some scary stuff, thoughts that only the devil probably would have put in me. I just had to turn to God, ask for help, ask those questions, pray, literally just ask for clarity and find ways to make sure no one else would do that. I mean, that's where birthing my brand and my page and now my influence to hundreds of thousands of people on the daily, because of the hell I went through, and I rose again. And if I could at those times, because I know I was typing in some of the achievements I've had in business, all those things happened during this time. I don't even know how I did it.
Wow.
I don't know how I stayed alive. I don't know how I managed to heal, detox, spiritually connect, stay grounded while also going through hell, fear, pain, shame, loss, pharmaceuticals, not getting, I was the black sheep in the family. I was the only one awake. No one knew what I was talking about. So that's why you're now learning that what you told me just like 10, 15 minutes ago is so profound, because you
Yeah.
summarized the last 3 years in 3 sentences. And I don't know how
Mm.
you knew that and did that, because you didn't know much about this. If you're listening to this right now and you're going through grief, you've lost a loved one. I know we've all had a lot of pain these last few years, isolation, depression, anxiety, even suicidal thoughts. Just first know that you're not by yourself. You'd be surprised there's more people out there that are going through this right now than you think. The second thing too, it's okay to feel, especially for men. It's okay to feel. You're allowed to feel. And I know we've lived in a society where it may not be the most conducive to process those types of things. It's okay to rest. It's okay to pull back and say no and take time for yourself, because life is truly a marathon. We have so many amazing things ahead of all of us, and it's okay to take some time to process certain components. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to let people in. I know it's tough at first, but when I started letting my guard down and my ego, that's when my heart started to put itself back together. That's when I realized I wasn't alone, that this is only temporary, that tough times don't last, tough people do. And then if I can open myself up to people and find community, this will help me come out better. And that's where our Wakewater Co community was born. Thousands of people now. It didn't just come from me rolling out of bed and doing it and hitting the lottery. It came from pain, sadness, shame, resent,
Yeah.
grief, anger, frustration, revenge, negativity, and doubt. That's where those accolades came from. That's where those wins came from. That's where the millions and billions of dollars came from. That's where the gold came from. If you start skipping these things or you're getting stuck there, just know that the best is truly yet to come. And do not let those low lows really determine who you are as a person, because that's where your character is forged. And that's what a phoenix does. That's where we come out better. And that's how I live my life. And that's why I show up and keep showing up the way I do and get up at 5 a.m. because it's no longer about me. It's about we. It's about humanity. It's about people. Because how fun is it if you're all by yourself on this world? We're meant to be with people. We're meant to be with community. We're meant to have relationships.
Yeah.
And those are some of, maybe for you right now, if you're going through a tough time, the last thing you want to think about. That also may be your best medicine you may have yet to try, and see if it works for you as well. So just wanted to share that, make sure people hear that, because I know times can be tough, especially in this world. Best is yet to come, and nothing can stop the truth and what's happening and what's unfolding. So stay the course, trust yourself, and just know that you have support. Your best support system is your connection to God and Spirit and Creator. Yeah, those are some things that really, really helped me going through those tough times.
That was brilliant. Thank you so much. I have one final question that I'm asking everyone. So what is the most important thing you have learned about love in your life?
Well, that's a good question. For me, growing up, most of my life, love was a word that I used to only think was on a Hallmark card or something you say at the end of a letter. It was just a word. I didn't know the feeling behind it. I didn't know what it is to feel loved fully. And I thought I did. And I probably the closest thing was the love my parents gave me, which I was so blessed. That's why it was so hard for me to lose my father. And I still have my mother here, and I love her dearly. Love, though, in so many other ways outside of your family was more like superficial. It was more like kind of like conditional, right? Can have conditions, certain requirements to receive love. And so, what has love taught me just maybe recently is that, yeah, the unconditional aspect is there really is an answer for many things. And at the same time, there are no answers for anything because there's a lot of things that you can do. And one of the best questions that helped me transmute a lot of things, right? You hear this story I just shared with you. It sounds painful. It sounds horrible. I don't want to experience that. Yet the question I started to ask to get my answer was, what's the benefit of this? How is this helping me? How are these suicidal thoughts helping me improve my life? And it's such a hard one to ask, and you don't want to ask it. And when I started to ask these questions, it's like every answer like came back to love. It came back to caring about others, not so much more than yourself. I think we feel that at a certain kind of a guilt level. Like I gotta to fix my problems, I gotta worry about everyone else's and fix theirs first. Fill that cup up first, love others and help others as much as you would help yourself, not more. And there's this balance that we can create when it comes to loving yourself, having respect for yourself. And one of the best ways to love yourself, take care of yourself. Say the right words to yourself. All right. Say and instead of but. Choose no, will, can, am instead of can't, maybe, kind of, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Every choice, literally the situation you're in physically with your health, mentally, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and financially is all, this is going to be triggering. It's all your fault. Everything you've done, there has been a series of micro choices, consciously or unconsciously. You chose to wake up at a certain time. You chose to go get to the gym. You chose to eat a certain food. You chose to get in the right mindset. You chose this. You made about 1,000 choices before you finally chose to click play on this podcast. So you listening to this, that's all your fault. It's just none of them have to be negative, right? Me making $1 million, that's my fault. Me having a huge business, that's my fault, right? That's a good thing. So you take that personal accountability, and when you start realizing it, it kind of makes you laugh, like kind of like you did. You start smiling, like, oh my gosh, I've associated the word fault with negativity. I've associated the word pain with negativity. Well, there's great benefit in your pain. There's great benefit in having fear because what you fear most is usually what you love the greatest. You just haven't discovered it. So it always works in those mirrors and works in those polarities. So when it comes to what was your biggest lesson, is that it's everywhere and it's anywhere. And it just depends if you're choosing to see it, feel it, receive it, hear it, say it, and be it. And that's all your fault. And how you perceive that, that's your medicine. And for me, I chose to live it. I chose to say it. I chose to feel it. I chose to see it. And that's why so many good things now, after I just went through hell and back, keep happening to me, because I truly have that comparison of how low you can go, of how fearful and how evil and how dark and how scary that can be. And that world can feel inside the mind and closed off heart. And I also now know how high you can fly and how high you can rise, how much you can live yourself, be authentic, be true, be honest, be open, be loyal, be caring, compassionate, and kind. And as more people start to do this and take that accountability, that it is our fault, not the government, not our parents, not the corporations, not the food system, not the banks, not the poison, not the pharmaceuticals, not the polluted water, the fake food. None of those are the fault, because we chose to eat them. We chose to take them. We chose to follow them. We made these choices, and that's our fault. And so we can bring that power back to us. At first, it's triggering. But I always say a trigger turns into a trampoline. A slingshot pulls back first before it launches. A mess turns into a message. A failure is simply feedback in disguise. And you start rewording and rewiring your language consciously to create your reality differently. You'll realize that love is the answer, and love is everywhere and anywhere, as long as you put that vision and cast it out and see it for what it is. And that's what I would say to love. That's what I would say if I were to have a conversation, if they were a person. And they are, because we are all love. And so it is.
That is beautiful. I couldn't have said it any better.
Very good.
I love it. Thank you. So Chris O'Brien, if people want to know more about your work and
Sure.
find out more
Yeah,
about
great
you, where can
question.
they
Well,
find you?
just look for Come Out Better on all the platforms. That's it. Keep it very simple. Come Out Better on Instagram. Come Out Better on the Twitter app or X app. Come Out Better with a Q instead of an O, on the Q instead of O on Telegram. Come Out Wealthier on TikTok. So a lot of financial codes I leave there, crypto and things like that. I have a website, comeoutbetter.com. Those are the drops. Those are the nuggets. And please reach out. We're all on the same team, looking to get to the same place, just different ways of getting there. So that's where you can find me. And that's how we come out better together. Thank
Beautiful.
you. Thank you for having me too.
Thanks, Chris,
Absolutely.
for being on the podcast.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody watching. And tune in for more. Laura's got a great foundation, great platform. She speaks from the heart, and she's got a lot of wisdom to share. So keep tapping in with her and tapping in at 11:11. You'll be good.
If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and share this episode with someone who can benefit from it. Have a beautiful day, bliss and bless.